Yeah. So, we keep saying nail salon. We keep saying it's a nail salon. We're doing nails. It's a studio. It's this. And you start from, obviously, if you think about just the name, right? The parlor. What does the parlor actually mean?
Yeah.
And when you start actually diving into that, because it's in and of itself, it's a hard name for Italians to pronounce.
Yeah.
But the exercises that I started to do, I put myself in the middle of everything. And working in luxury, right? So what does luxury actually mean? People, when they talk about luxury, they think high-ticket items.
Yeah.
But that's not really it, is it? Luxury means so many different things to so many people. Luxury can mean, can I get this done in 20 minutes? Can I be in and out in 20 minutes? On the flip side, can I spend 2 hours here?
Right.
Yeah. And so it's not always, luxury doesn't necessarily always mean what's the price tag, right? And so for me, at the end of the day, in all of my roles in my careers, what luxury started to mean was, how are you making people feel? And how are they walking away after an interaction? Yeah. And what is that experience, right? So it became more where previously in my previous careers or my previous roles, luxury meant I was selling a product. And here the product became that emotion.
Yeah.
Right? It became like, when you're leaving, what are you leaving with? You're leaving with a feeling. Right?
Yeah.
And so how do we make sure that that feeling stays with somebody? Like, yes, we're doing treatments, but what does that treatment mean to each individual?
Yeah.
And so that's where I said to myself, this isn't just about a nail salon, right? Like, how am I going to build it here? And in the middle of everything, number one was myself. I used myself as like the woman in the center because clearly there was something missing from me.
Yeah.
And if I'm coming from a world where this was everything that I've spent 25, 30 years of a career on, how am I going to create this where people it's going to resonate with people, whether they're local Florentines, whether it's somebody just passing through, whether they're expats that are already living here. And so I started thinking about all of this, and it always came back to the why. Why would somebody want to come?
Yeah.
Why would somebody want to come back? If it's not just a one-off experience, and how do we create and change the culture where getting a service done or taking time out for yourself, if you're getting a manicure and a pedicure or a facial, we have multiple services that we have, but how does it become less of a chore and more of an intentional moment for yourself?
Yeah.
And so this was where I poured in a lot of thought and a lot of exercises, right? So down to the details, down to the location. And miraculously, I happen to live also on the block where the parlor is. And that in and of itself is, an area where you don't have any other kind of access.
No.
And it has to be the experience, right? So normally when you think of a nail salon, you're walking into somewhere and there's bright fluorescent lights and everything's white marble and everything's or shiny neon pink. And that's great.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful for those types of environments. For me, it had to be, I'm inviting you into my living room.
Into your parlor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the word parlor actually derives from 18th century, 19th century. It was a room in a home where you would invite and host guests.
Right.
And you would talk after dinner. You would, have conversations and hold salons, quote unquote salons where you're sitting and chatting, whether it was after dinner, before dinner. So that's where the idea actually came from. But also, the area on Borgo San Jacopo, those were all buildings that were bombed after after World War II. So they were all rebuilt in the 50s and 60s. And so it brought the idea of, obviously I grew up in New York City, And it came to my mind. I'm like, the parlor was kind of like those, I always think of the movie Steel Magnolias.
Yeah, that's right. The beauty parlor.
Yes,
where everyone just goes
parlor.
to chat and catch up and gossip and whatever.
Exactly, with Sally Field.
Right.
And so, I was like, this is it. Like, there was so much that I took, and Giorgio, who is the architect, who taught me so much about how you pay homage to a space. Like, what was the space made? What was the space? When was it built? I was like, it was built in the 50s. The parlor is kind of like that quintessential 1950s U.S. America, parlor, beauty parlor where everybody would go to. And so the word just kept popping back into my mind. And then as I continued to do more research on the word, it also in French means to talk.
That's right. Yeah.
To speak. And also in Italian,
right.
Parlare. To speak, to talk, to, to share.
Yeah.
And so it was so obvious kind of that I was just like, okay, here we go.